Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Spiritual Journey podcast. This is episode 96. Really can't believe this is episode 96. That's crazy. We came coming to close to 100 episodes. Always like to start the episode by just letting all those listeners know how grateful I am. I love just receiving the messages and know that this podcast is having an impact. And so I feel very grateful and blessed today. So thank you. And before I introduce myself, I always like to ask my co-host, the beautiful Stacey Brown. Sorry, I should do that properly. Introducing the amazing, the stunning, the healer extraordinaire, Stacey Brown. Stacey, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, friends. I'm really looking forward to this episode. It energetically feels powerful. Um, and I love this space with you, Nims. Just thinking about getting close to episode 100, it's like we've been doing this for a while now.
Yeah, it's crazy, right? I mean, I think you joined from episode 17. Sure, I've had some with a couple of guests, but it means that we've done nearly 80 episodes together. How crazy, eh? So,
Yeah. It's
and
just really amazing to think um, if we had all of our listeners in one big room together, connecting. I just hope that you all can feel the connection with us and the intention behind what we do. So my name is Stacey, and I'm an intuitive and a coach and a mentor. I help people from all different walks of life in all parts of the world to take action to creating the life that you want. And I do it through readings, and I do it through an amazing program that Mesh and I have together, a mentorship program. And I also read Akashic Records. And I recently published my first book, Journey to Soul Center Discovering the Gift of Surrender. So that's a lot. But this podcast is a passion of mine. And I'm just deeply grateful for all of our listeners as we embark on this episode.
thank you, Stace. And hi, everybody. My name is Nimesh. Everyone calls me Nims, so feel free to call me Nims. I'm also an Akashic record reader, Akashic trainer, podcast host, podcast creator, as well as a spiritual coach and mentor. And as Stacey was saying, I love the work that we do. I mean, the Akashic records has really changed my life. This podcast was started by a message I received from the records. The mentorship program that we do was channeled through the records, and this podcast, I had no idea where it was going to go. I started it with the intention to really share whatever truth I had and to simplify spirituality. And yeah, did I ever think it was going to reach the numbers that it had? I never really thought about it, to be honest. Just so everyone knows, we're at nearly 50,000 unique listeners. We have over 100K downloads, and I just feel so blessed. So thank you. This episode, in all honesty, I was talking to Stacey about it before. Feels like a really important episode. We we don't plan the episodes. We schedule them months in advance, but we just have a conversation on the topic, and we just felt the intensity of this one. And we did a little bit of prep. For example, we opened the Akasha Records before starting this recording. We don't normally do that. So yeah, this week's topic is the dark night of the soul. And that term gets if you're on the spiritual journey, you probably hear it quite often. What does it really mean? And for me personally, I really feel that we go through multiple dark nights of the soul, and it's not like a one-time thing, but it really is a period where everything about you is being shed away and you're going through a rebirth. And it kind of means that you really question everything. It's like, I see myself when I've gone through where I've been on the ground and just been angry at God and there's no part of me that was not going through some sort of pain. And I was just trying to understand it. And, it's one of these things that you can't necessarily understand with the mind. It's a state where, you're going through a rebirth to truly be reborn in whatever way the new version of you needs to be. the thing is that even when in awareness and you know what's happening, it still can be a very painful process. It's just I'm hoping the insights that we give you today maybe helps you to understand what you're going through, or maybe what you've been through. Maybe it gives you some tips to, if you feel like, and if you're going to go through it, maybe it gives you some insights to accelerate that journey, to kind of understand in some ways it's a gift. That may be a weird thing to say, because how can something so painful that really kind of strips everything about you to the bare bones and kind of rebuilds you, how can that be a good thing? It's because sometimes, when our life goes in stages, and sometimes we get to a stage where we need to go through that rebirth. And it's part of our spiritual journey. It's part of our path to awakening, to go through that dark night of the soul, to be reborn. And how often do we mourn the old part of ourselves? That's interesting, right? I mean, our current version has got us to who we are today. So, of course, you love the current version of you. But in many ways, you need to let that version go, because what if everything you've learned so far in this lifetime, the programming, everything else that you've gone through, is a thing that's holding you back? And that's, that really what it is. It's it really is a profound and challenging period. It really, it's a period of intense, I'm just reading what they're saying about it online. It's a period of intense suffering, doubt, and questioning who you are. And it is. It's kind of the way I've described it. But it's, when you get through the other side, you are like a phoenix rising out of the ashes. And for our listeners, if you're going through this, depending on what stage you're at, keep going and understand the universe is always supporting you. Just for me, when I was going through, whenever I've been through this type of, it's the time where I haven't felt supported. But when I look back, I know I was more supported than ever before. But it's hard to feel it, because you don't understand anything. So I'm not sure where this episode is going to go, Stace, but I'd love to hear from you in terms of, what does Dark Night of the Soul mean to you?
I have been through some crazy experiences in my life, and I don't think that I ever understood in the midst of it that it would be called a dark night of the soul. I just knew that I was facing challenges and didn't know how I was going to navigate them. And I believe that a lot of us in this season are struggling through dark nights. I feel like the energy is super intense, but the only thing I know to do when we do these episodes is to think about my history and my experiences, and take that wisdom and hopefully impart it to someone else. And for me, those dark seasons, I couldn't have fathomed coming out the other side. Like, when I was in it, it felt like it was never going to end. Um, I would say that when I was in a dark night of the soul experience in my life, I was depressed. I felt lost. Um, I felt alone, and I felt pain. And I'm saying this because I don't know if any of our listeners can relate, but I would imagine they can. And um, every time I went through a dark night, I would come out the other side with so much more clarity on who I am and how I'm meant to show up in the world. And so I look back on those experiences and it like almost makes me sick. Like I keep trying to kind of dig into them and say, like, this is what I went through. But when you go through it, it's just so dark. And so to recount it, like I did for the book, etc., it's you go right back to that space. When you've been through a dark night, it's like a feeling that you'll never forget. It can break you wide open if you let it. I think about my son, and for those who might be new to the podcast, trigger warning. Um, my son attempted to take his own life 4.5 years ago. And in that season and the months that followed, I went through the darkest time of my life. I felt like everything was being tested. I felt like I was being tested physically because I wasn't taking care of myself. I felt like I was being dragged through the mud mentally and emotionally because I felt so afraid and unstable and in pain. And spiritually, I had always felt deeply connected, but through that dark night, it became the only thing I could rely on was my spiritual connection. And so I it's like I don't know who's listening to this, but I know that there's somebody out there that is thinking there's never going to be an end to this suffering. And I would say that those dark nights are put there to break us wide open. So hold on.
I have said it better myself. You know, the dark night of the soul isn't a permanent place to be, but it is a transition. It is a transformation. Eventually, you're going to emerge from it with a deeper understanding of who you are and why you're here. And everyone always talks about finding the light. We've got to be, find the light, raise your vibration, all that sort of stuff. But we all have light and darkness in us, right? And how often do we push the darkness away? And when you push the darkness away, you're giving the darkness power because it's part of who you are. It's like pushing a part of you away. It's like having, multiple kids and pushing one of them away because you don't like them because it's the darker side. That we have to embrace all of us. And actually, when you embrace the dark side of you, you actually take away its power. So really, for me, dark night of the soul, a big part of it is accepting who you are, accepting that you're going through it. And it's just, I remember, it's like whenever I think of the image of the dark night of the soul, I think of myself on the ground and just being so angry at God, source, whatever you want to call about it, and I just couldn't understand. And a lot of it was my expectations of what I thought my life was going to be. It's that. I'm like, I remember thinking, well, hold on, I'm a good person. I've done what I've always felt was right. I really kind of tried to live a life from a value base, right? Try and just trust in my own journey. And but I remember it is because of my expectations. One of the areas was I always thought, by a certain age I was going to be married, have kids, and whatever that looks like here, right? And it's just that I was like to God, well, hold on, don't I deserve to be happy, right? I've given so much back to this world. Surely I deserve to be happy. But it was the way that I was expecting the happiness to come. And that's part of it, right? It's that really knowing that it's a phase and this too shall pass in some way helps. Really kind of being honest with yourself about who you are and allowing yourself to be vulnerable, kind of look in the mirror, having that deep conversation with yourself. Because it is a crisis of who you are, right? You are really questioning everything about you. In many ways, not just as a human, but also as a soul. And I can't say if there's any kind of big epiphany. There's a big moment where I thought I was through that period, and it just happens, right? You start to see things differently. And it's interesting because we're recording this on, Monday, 16th October, and it's just everyone talks about the two periods between the two eclipses, and this is in between two eclipses being a period of transformation. This episode is released on October 30th, so it's kind of you come into that period of potentially the end of a transformation. And if I think about this year, and it's like, Stacey, if I think about some of our clients, all the conversations we've had, this year kind of feels like a massive upgrade for everybody. And maybe in many ways, all of us going through some dark night of the soul experience. And whether we recognize it like that or not, but it does feel like it's like, when COVID hit, we were all kind of going through something similar, being in isolation. This year, everybody feels like they've been through a lot. And whether it was a dark night of the soul, transformation, these are all labels, right? But it does feel like in many ways, a lot of people have been through something deep. And even if I look at my experience, we were talking about some of it before we started recording. I just feel like the universe has been clearing my path. It's kind of like, friends that I've had for many years are going through things, and I'm going through things, and I realize I'm not here to fix people. I'm here to guide people. And I realize also in many ways I expand people. And sometimes that brings things up in people, and I get the backlash of it, right? And, I'm human too. I don't want to get that backlash. Yes, I may be the person that expands and asks certain questions but if you're going through something, then go through it, right? We're on this spiritual journey. So I guess the message and the reason I'm sharing that is if any of our listeners are feeling angry, are feeling annoyed, feeling frustrated, look for your answers inside. Really be aware of who you're taking out on, because maybe that person doesn't deserve it, right? You're on your journey, so sit with yourself and understand, and really ask yourself, what does this mean for you? What are the parts of you that you're holding on to that no longer serve you? What are you doing to take care of yourself? What are you doing to truly raise your vibration and kind of, are you spending more time in nature? Are you journaling more? Are you truly, and are you being honest with yourself? Sometimes a real honest conversation with yourself about who you are, where you're at, and what you've got to do is super powerful. And I remember, and I know at my deepest, darkest moments, what I've done is I've had a real conversation with God. Some of it's involves swearing, right? God, source, whatever you want to call it, can take it. And I've been angry, I've shouted, and I've got, sometimes I'm angry at myself. When it's just that sometimes I have a conversation with my soul. It's like, what did I agree in this human existence? Why did I agree to go through whatever I've been through? And having those sort of conversations, it's kind of some sort of release. And having a conversation with my soul saying, well, hold on, why did we go down this journey? What were we thinking? What was the purpose? Once you start, maybe you then get some insights as to why you've been through what you're through. And I really try and live by way of having no regrets. It is what it is. I'm in this. I don't got a time machine. I can't change who I've been, and I've got to, and I want to accept the person I am today. And that's a process, right? It is a process. It is a journey, and it's in many ways it's easier to see on other people. So, Stacey, I've had the benefit of seeing some of your darkest periods over the last couple of years, but I've also been there to see you shine your light from it. I've been there and seen that, you've transformed. You were an amazing healer before I met you, but you transformed through your pain and through the experience you've had. Your healing abilities have gone to another level. You transformed every part of your life, and it's kind of sometimes you don't see the growth in yourself after you've been through a dark night experience because you just kind of carry on. So I guess what I'd encourage our listeners to do is think about your darkest moments. Think about your dark night of the soul experiences, whatever they may have looked like in the past. And ask yourself, how did you grow? What did you go through? And remind yourself you got through it. It was you that got through it. And that's always, and it's important to remember that the universe isn't going to give you anything you can't handle. And there's going to be times where you don't want to carry on. There's times where I've just said to God, you know what, I'm done. I'm done. But it's, I always remember saying, I tell God my plans and he laughs, right? And it's like, there's a knowingness there somewhere that you're going to get through it. And maybe it doesn't feel like it right now, but I'm hoping somewhere in this episode, the listener that needs to hear it hears the phrase, you're going to get through it. Your light is needed. You're wanted. And I guess, just something to mention as we're going through this topic is the work that me and Stacey do is really to help and guide people on their spiritual journey. Nobody needs fixing. So if you're going through the dark night of the soul, you don't need to be fixed. You're going through what you're meant to go through. But working with us, if what our message resonates, we can guide you and maybe accelerate and make the journey that much easier because we can hold your space as you're going through it. So reach out to us. We have an amazing mentorship program, and you can book a free discovery call. But I'm really hoping the words that we use today help you to realize that you're not alone. So Stacey, I went off a little tangent there. How are you feeling?
I'm just thinking about how challenging it is when you're in it, and the feeling of isolation, it was significant. And for me, I was ravaged by what happened with my son. And then I hit an issue with my own health that had me in bed for 3 months. And it felt like I was kicked and kicked and kicked down. And I feel like I'm coming out the other side, but I would still say there's I'm still figuring out what life is in this season because like you said, it can take you in a direction that you weren't expecting. And I think we all have expectations. Like I think about the number of people who like me say like why did I have to go through this? Like why? And I believe why not? We expect that our life is supposed to look a certain way. And then when it doesn't, we're upset, but we signed up for this. And though I've come a long way, and I wouldn't say that I'm in the dark night anymore, I would say I'm still working on accepting that this is my life and embracing it. And I gave up a lot to be here. I I didn't just go through my own dark night, but it was like a family event. And when you go through a dark night, you're never going to be the same person that you were before. You're never going to be the same. And I know that that's hard to hear. It's hard for me to say it. But to be in this space, I had to save myself. And I had to figure out what the recipe was for me. Because there were points that were really dark, Nims. And everything was so good before that, that I still sometimes have to say, like, why? Why? But the times that I question that are a lot less when I'm helping other people. And so if you're in a space where hearing it gets better doesn't work because you feel like it's never going to get better, I would tell you to find a way to help other people, find a way to serve. Because when I started opening up on my journey, helping other people was the only thing that relieved the pain that I was still in as I was navigating the other side. And somehow pouring into other people with what little bit of bandwidth I had at the time, pouring into other people gave me a space to start recognizing like the importance of what I was going through because I was showing up differently. Does that make sense?
Of course, makes a lot of sense. It's a
And
big part.
so if you're not to the point where you can see that it's going to get better, start by serving. And it might be in, the way of just sending a text message to someone saying that you're thinking about them. It may be volunteering at the local animal shelter, but find something that brings you some sort of peace, or it might even be a momentary bit of happiness to pour into someone else or something else. And I would say start there. But then I also think that we have to have action that we take to try and navigate through it, right? And there are plenty of different avenues to do that. But it's about what steps do you individually need to be able to move your life forward through the dark night and apply the lessons that came in the dark night into your life right now. And I think that is the part that people struggle with the most. I know I did.
Yeah, that's a really powerful way of putting it. And I guess the other thing to remember is everybody's journey is unique. And, like I said, I hope you get some insights in this episode. But don't compare yourself, right? Whatever you're going through is unique to you. And always remember that, as Stacey was saying, and it's a kind of weird thing to say, but at some level, your soul chose this. The human part of you is going to struggle to understand why. I know I do, and I did, and I still do sometimes. Because you wonder, well, why? What was the point? Why would you go through such a painful? But ultimately, it's about you activating whatever's that part of you. It's like, we all got karmic stuff to release. It's releasing the things that don't longer serve. For me, the first stage is always acceptance. Accept who you are. Embrace the light and the dark, and really accept this is a natural part of who that coming to awareness that you're going through a dark night of the soul, and truly accepting you're going through it and accepting who you are is such an important step. And Stacey was talking about serving 100%, but don't forget you in that. Make sure you're serving you. What does that look like? I talked about a mentorship program, but seek guidance. If finding a coach or a mentor is the right thing to do that, if you therapy, counseling, whatever you feel, ask and make sure that because it's like when you're going through it, it feels like you're all alone. I know it feels like, but there is help out there. So really consider what help do you need. Practice that self-compassion. Have a self-care routine that gets you into some kind of routine, which includes journaling. So you have a space to release what's happening inside you. includes time in nature, includes, kind of meditation, whatever that looks like for you. Because the weird thing is, we stop doing the things that work because we're in that dark space. But actually having some sort of routine, which includes meditation, mindfulness, journaling, helps you in some sort of way to get out of it and 100% start to serve in whatever way that looks like. But having a routine, connecting with a supportive community, whatever that looks like, starting to serve and kind of, because it's like the way that Stacey's talking about serving whatever way helps you to realize that you are here to serve. It connects you and in some way helps you to start to feel good about yourself again. But in some way, you need to also understand and accept this new version of you. What are your beliefs? Because in many ways, the crisis of the dark night of the soul is you really questioning who you are, your identity. So all of us have been through so much programming in life that have created the person that we are today. Whether it's religious, whether it's parental, whether it's cultural, whether it's work, there's all so much programming that we've been to create the person, the version of who we are today. But dark night of the soul is really, it's questioning everything about you. So it's questioning all your human experiences of what's made you who you are today. And you've loved who you are today in some ways, right? And it's that, but it's breaking that all apart by piece so you can be rebuilt. And it's not like you can just, I'm gonna just decide to rebuild my arm and that's it. I'm not gonna. It's almost like, I'm not even sure we have a choice, right? It's something that was part of your destiny and your soul had a choice, but everything you've gone to has actually brought you to you are today. But like I said earlier, it needs to be rebuilt, it needs to be broken down. And it's that really just acceptance, because there really is stages, right? And the darkest part of it, what's called the dark night of the soul, is when you feel alone, is when you can't feel your guides around you when they're probably around you so much more. You can't feel the support, you can't feel the love from anybody. It's that. But they always say it's always darkest before the dawn, right? So when you're feeling the most darkest, when you're feeling the most unsupported, just know that actually, in many ways, that might and should mean that you're close to getting to the other side. But the other thing to remember is the dark night soul is there to be experienced. You can't bypass it. I feel that you could probably accelerate it by actually doing some of the things we talked about in terms of self-care, journaling and kind of really accepting who you are and letting go of the pieces that don't serve you. And I get we make that sound easy, right? But doing all those things, I think, helps to accelerate the journey. But your soul having human experience, you've got to have the human experience for your soul to expand and kind of go through what it's meant to. And like I was saying earlier, I really do feel like a lot of us have been going through some sort of dark night of soul this year. So just know that you're not on your own.
So one of the things that I'm thinking too is there are people who go through a dark night of the soul and they stay in it. They stay in the darkness. And for me, the dark night of the soul didn't feel like a choice. When I was going through it, it didn't feel like a choice. But how I'm coming out the other side feels like it is a choice, meaning like I know the things that I need to do to take care of myself and to pour into other people. I know what I need to do. And because I know it, I can't unknow it. You know what I mean? Like now that I'm in this awareness, I can't unknow it. And so I have to apply that formula to every day, every day. And some days I'm better than others because I still feel like coming out of the dark night is a process. It's not, I mean, when we call it a dark night, it would be nice if it was just one night, right? But it's not. For some of us, it's years of suffering and pain and heartache, and not being able to embrace it and not being able to wrap your head around why you're going through this. Like I mean, it really, it can be a lengthy process. I know for me, it has been. And so, you know, it helps when people close to me can say, like, I've seen how this has grown you and expanded you. Because sometimes it's moving at such a fast pace, you can't even take it all in, right? Like things are changing so much as you're evolving through it that you can't see it, and the people around you can. And so sometimes you need that. So I would also say lean into community. Find community that resonates with you. You know, this is just some of the ways that we help people. And I wouldn't be able to do this work if I hadn't gone through the dark night. I really feel like I went through each one of the dark times to grow me and to allow me to be able to connect with more people. And so sometimes it feels overwhelming, but I try to go back to my faith. I would say my faith guides me more than anything else. And I would say if you don't have some sort of spiritual connection, maybe it's time to think about cultivating one. Because when the ground fell out from underneath me, I sacrificed my home, I sacrificed my marriage, I sacrificed my family dynamic. It was really overwhelming. And when all of that was stripped away, the one thing that I feel can never be taken from me is my spiritual connection. And again, it's something that you can cultivate. But without that, I just don't know how I would have gotten through it all, Nims.
Yeah, that's it's like when we talk about faith, it's also, whether you call it religion, whether you call it your guides, whether it's having faith that there is a power out there that's helping you and guiding you. It just reminds me of a conversation we were having today with one of our clients around, the question was, hold on, where does God fit into all this? Where does our guides, kind of, is there a hierarchy? And my response was, I don't think there's a difference. For me, it's just one energy, one vibration. And that faith is knowing there's a vibration, there's an energy out there. And when you're going through the dark night episode, it's probably the time when you feel the most disconnected. But if you could recognize there is an energy out there that is there supporting you, that really does help. And it's interesting, Stacey talks about, kind of community, and finding the right people to build in that community is what's really important, because there are going to be people around you that don't understand what you're going through. They maybe think that you're making it up, or maybe don't want you to change, because if you change, they may lose you. But if you ask the universe normally will send you people that can be supportive. So maybe the people that right now you're closest to are the ones that don't understand what you're going through. And maybe that's when you feel the most alone. But if you're open to it, you can ask the universe to send you people that are supportive. Yeah.
Wait, buddy. I have something important to say. You were one of those people for me. I was like thinking about it this morning. I do some of my best thinking in the shower. And I was thinking about it, and the beginning of the aftermath of the Dark Night was the social media app Clubhouse. And
So
friends, you've
interesting.
heard
I was
us.
just about to talk about Clubhouse.
Yeah,
Oh, mine.
if you've been around here for a while, you know there's a social media app called Clubhouse. It's an audio only app, and Nimesh and I met on that app. And I would say I was reflecting that the beginning of the end for me, the end of my marriage, the new season, the rebirth, was my pivotal first trip to the UK. And I had no idea that I was going to be back and forth 7 times in the last couple of years, that I was going to see and experience so many incredible things. Um, when we were in the dark night, we had groups of people that would come to our house and gather in prayer for us, for our son. And it's interesting because I remember the room being filled with people, but I don't remember faces. And I don't remember anything else from the prayers but one thing. And it resonated because it it hit more than once. God gave us the message, I think 2, maybe 3 times. And it was the prayer that God would show up and show off for our family. And I'm super scared right now in this season, right? Like this is all new to me. But anytime that I want to like give up, I get flashes of all of the incredible things that I've experienced in the last couple of years and how none of them would have been possible had I not suffered in the way that I did. It's it's significant to see the chain of events and the ripple effect that it's had. And basically, I started talking about my pain. That was how we met.
Yeah, you've been vulnerable.
Was I was being vulnerable about the dark night. And I was still in a space of being in that darkness when we met, Nims, for sure.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's why we connected, right? I felt your vulnerability, and it's really interesting. The reason I came up on, Clubhouse is a space where you have a stage where people are talking, and you have a listening lounge where people are just listening. I had no plans to come up and talk on that day. I was driving, and but you shared so authentic and so vulnerably. I just had to come up and say, "Wow, well done." Because for me, there's a difference between trauma dumping, if you want to call it a different phrase, and being vulnerable. And being vulnerable, when I heard you speak that day, I felt you being vulnerable because you wanted to share, because one, it was healing for you, but two, you felt that maybe somebody hearing would give them hope. So it's your intention when you're sharing it. I felt your love and I felt your intention to be vulnerable. And that's why I had to come on stage and say, you know what, all I wanted to say was, look, thank you for being vulnerable. And yeah, it was a powerful share. And but I've talked to you about this quite often. It's like when you switch from being vulnerable and you turned your pain into purpose, that was also profound, because there was a part of you knew that you had to go through what you had to go through for you to be reborn into this version of you. Because again, I love the way you talk about, when your son went through what he went through, he crashed his car, even though he was driving on his own. He wasn't literally all of you were there together, because there was a ripple effect on all of you. And it's that, but all of you chose, your family chose to all deal with it differently and uniquely.
Mhm.
That for me is a great example of how this journey is unique.
Mhm.
Because in many ways, you're all going through the same thing, but you all chose to deal with it differently. And there's no right or wrong. It's just you choose your way.
And there's no specific timeline, right? Because for some people, that dark night could be years. And so you can't expect, my friend, my listeners, you can't expect to overnight have instant answers. It doesn't work that way. It would be like if you broke your arm in 3 places and went to the doctor and thought that the cast was going to heal the arm overnight. It's not. You have to set the bone. You have to manage the pain. You have to manage the swelling, and you have to wait and be patient. I would say coming out the other side of the dark night takes patience because it takes time. It's not something that you can just wave a magic wand and be through it. If you really are looking to go deeper in your journey, it takes time and it takes cultivating more of a relationship with yourself, with that awareness, doing something about it. And then it takes a heck of a lot of patience.
But you have to do the work. So having
Yeah.
that self-care routine, being conscious of creating the community around you, allowing people to help you, being open to it is a big part of it. And I guess I wish I could say that, dark night of the soul only happens once in a lifetime. It isn't a one-time thing, right? We're a soul having a human experience. So, the levels of awakening, or the dark night of the soul may be different. Who decides what's the level, right? But that upgrade, that being reborn, that transformation happens from my experience multiple times in a lifetime, right? So, but phrases like "this too shall pass" helped me, because then I knew it was going to pass. It's always darkest before the dawn. Is that I knew that there was some light out there. God's delays are not God's denials. There's these things that I knew. There's a knowingness in me, because I sat with my soul, knowing that I'm here for bigger things. And I probably didn't feel it at the time. It's easier for me to feel it now. But when I did start to feel and accept that whatever I'm going through is part of my journey, that acceptance, and I keep going back to it, is such a big part. Because otherwise what we do is we stay in that space because we keep fighting who we are and who we're turning into. So, awareness that you're going through the dark night of the soul, and accepting that you're going through it and you are who you are and you are where you are, I find is really big. The more you fight it, the more you stay stuck, right? Because you're fighting for the old version of you who doesn't exist. Change is the only constant, right? And no matter how much we want to go back to the old version of ourselves, who we look at with rose-colored glasses, no matter how much we want to go back, you can't. As Stacey says, it's like once you open that level of awareness, it's like opening Pandora's box. Once it's open, it's open. You can't all of a sudden not become aware, because you become aware that you're going through the dark night of the soul. You're aware that you're on this journey, and that awareness brings some sort of expansion, some sort of pushing you to become something different. So I go back to remind you that at some point, somewhere, you asked for this. Yes, you asked for it as a soul, but also in your human experience, I feel you asked for something different, that you wanted to change, you wanted to serve, but in some way, some part of you knew this was coming. And accepting this is part of your journey, for me, was a big part. It is ultimately, it's a deeply personal journey, right? And there isn't no one size fits solution. because we're all on a unique, we're all on a unique journey as a soul, having a human experience. That experience is unique to us. So, you can do research online and whatever that looks like, and anyone that works with us, we'd always check. It's like we're not here to fix anybody. We're here to guide people using our experience to guide people to their own answers inside, because your answers are in you. And whatever you're doing on this journey, remember, you don't need to be fixed. How often do we feel like we need to be fixed? None of us need to be fixed. We're exactly where we're meant to be, which actually can be really painful, right? It's like, hold on, am I where I'm meant to be? Do you mean I'm meant to experience this pain? Actually, you are. But actually, I feel how long you stay in this pain that's the choice. That's where the choice comes in.
And I want to add to that. I don't know what I would have done without the people who came into my life during those dark times. It was definitely divinely guided, and I've had some incredible mentors and friends who have rallied around me in support. And new relationships have formed that I never would have expected. And though my life looks nothing like I expected it to, I'm proud of what I've done with it. I'm proud of the fact that I continue to push to be better and to help others.
Powerful.
I wouldn't wish it on anyone, but I am grateful that I'm out the other side.
And that's a journey in itself too, right? I mean, even if I do feel the people that come into your life are divinely guided. And Stacey was at Clubhouse. I have no idea how I would have met you. You were living in rural Maryland. I don't think I've ever been to Maryland before I visited you. So it's like, and I live in London, so our upbringings couldn't be more different. And but spiritually, we're really well aligned. But it's that the universe guided us together. It's that, I guess, that if that gives hope to any of our listeners to know that the right people come into your path when you're ready, but you have to be ready and do the work to get there. And that, we can give you lots of complex processes and all that sort of stuff, but for me, we always come back to the same thing, right? It's that having a regular self-care routine that truly gives you like a base, and then asking for help, right? And that's so powerful. And it's not a sign of weakness, right? Getting, asking the universe for send the right people, working with a counselor, therapist, whatever that looks like, getting a coach or a mentor, asking for help is, for me, it's a sign of strength. So we've been through a lot of things on this podcast, and it's kind of, we didn't really know where it was going to go. And it's that, like I said, we don't plan the episodes, and we just channel whatever happens. And we knew this was going to be a powerful episode because just feel like a lot of people are going through the dark night of the soul. But my intention is always, my purpose is anyone I connect with, leave them better than I found them. So if this podcast helps one person who are going through whatever they're going through, then I'm super grateful. Like I said, we talked about it beforehand, is we had no idea where this was going to go. And I guess I'll share a little bit of insight. If you listen to a lot of podcasts, there's always like ad breaks and people selling this and that. And, me and Stacey always talk about, what's our call to action? And it's like, I'll talk about my call to action at the beginning. And I didn't talk about any of that. We just jumped straight in because it felt like a really powerful episode that we wanted to share. So Stace, as we kind of come to the end, we always talk about journal prompts. So I guess before we go there, just to remind people, on the show notes you'll find links to our websites, both mine and Stacey's, and we both offer a lot of services. Join us on social media. There's a lot of free content there. But one of the things you can get from both of our websites, if you go to Stacey's and register with your email address, you'll get a PDF for a journaling technique. And we talk about journaling through this episode. That journaling technique, you get the PDF, and it takes you through a process to journal with intention. Great thing, it's available for free. On mine, if you register, you get a free meditation to kind of help and guide you, to connect you to your energy and connect you to your guides. Please, get this free material that's there and let us know what you think. We always love feedback. I know that the journey technique that Stacey shares changes lives, right? So it's there, it's available for free. And Stacey, as we close out this episode, I'm going to ask you, what journal prompts do you think would help people if they're going through the dark night of the soul? And I think it looks like Stacey's frozen on the other side, so I guess I'm going to close this episode out. The general prompts for this one is, you need to ask yourself, are you going through the dark night of the soul? Are you willing to accept? Hello, everybody. So I'm not sure what happened there. Obviously, we were getting to a deep, dark place. So as we're closing out this episode, I was asking Stace, what are the journal prompts for?
I would start with, have I experienced a dark night of the soul? And maybe write about an experience that you feel is it. I feel like if you've been through one, and then, what do I need to do to care for myself in this time? And who are you surrounding yourself with? And just see what comes up.
Beautiful. Like I said, I normally don't edit this episode, so I don't know what happened there with the energy. So apologies for any gap that you felt. I'm probably not going to edit this episode, to be fair. I feel the vibration, the energy of this episode was powerful. We opened the Akashic records. Always love to get feedback. So let us know. And honestly, if you are going through something, reach out to us. Maybe if you want to share what you're going through, we're normally good at responding to DMs. If you feel inspired to work with us, reach out. But always know that you will get through this. You're not alone. You're needed. You're wanted. And we're sending you so much love and light. And Stacey, I'm going to hand over to you to close us out.
Thanks everybody for being here. We love to get messages from you. So whether you book a free discovery call, we'd be happy to chat with you, or send us a DM or an email. We love hearing from you, and follow us on social media. Thanks again, everybody.
Bye. Sending everyone lots of love and light. Bye for now.